I'd like to just show you some of the settings we can make on the terminal that make data capture and recording a little bit easier but also more reliable for the operator. The first thing I'd like to show you is under the Combine main menu. So in the top right hand corner we press the Combine, enter the main menu, and then under header settings we can set this red line, and this currently shows 90 and has got a notepad next to it. And what it's referring to is the height at which the job computer or the data recording turns on and off. Now it is also the height that the header goes to on an automatic headland turn feature. So when you click your headland sequence, the header will lift up to this height. So I would normally suggest we set that at a height that's clearly out of work when it's on it or above it, and clearly in work when we're below it. So somewhere 50, 60, 70% is normally adequate. Set that, and that's where the header will go to for our headland turn, and it's also the point at which we turn on and off our data recording. Remember, we might not always use the headland turn button. We might just manually lift the header up and down. So don't set it too low, because if you stop in the middle of a field, maybe you've got a blockage or something and you just want to lift it up a bit and reverse, you don't necessarily want to turn on and off the data recording. Conversely, don't set it too high, so that if you lift manually at the end for some reason, you may not lift high enough to trigger the data recording to cut off. So somewhere in that 50 to 70% is probably, will suit most people, but again, depending on circumstances. Just back to the main menu. The second feature I'd like to show you, which I think is really handy, is under the guidance menu. Press that a couple of times, and then at the top we've got the field menu and then the spanner. Within the spanner we've got field assistant, and we can turn on automatic field detection. What will happen now is when the Combine passes a field boundary, now this boundary could have been preloaded into the Combine via USB stick, or it could have been sent to the Combine with a job from Gatekeeper wirelessly. Obviously that makes a really nice solution. When you go in the field, it recognises you're in that field, it will offer you the choice of way lines for that field, and also with another setting we'll make in a minute, will prompt you to start a task. So let's have a look at the final settings. In the notepad, which is our task menu, we'll find the spanner button. If we press the spanner, here there's a few settings we can set. At the bottom we've got automatic task handling. So this is currently deactivated. I'm going to activate it now. And what will happen now is when we cross a field boundary, the Combine will prompt us to do a task. Now if a task is already there, so if you'd been well prepared for harvest, and in Gatekeeper you'd created a task for, say, harvesting first wheat, selected all your first wheat fields, sent that to the Combine. When we go in one of those first wheat fields, the task will be there, and it will prompt us to start that task, as we'll see in a second, and start harvesting. Now when we leave the field, we've got some choice of what happens. That's the second part of the menu down here. Now again, when we cross the field boundary, it's going to give us this choice. Do we want to continue with the current task? Do we want to automatically book the task? Or do we want to be prompted to pause and then maybe start the task? Now I find that the most useful one, because you're not necessarily going to leave the field and have finished it every time, and you certainly don't want to leave the field and carry on recording, because that makes for untidy yield maps. So the middle one makes good sense, and we'll see what happens shortly. So the Combine here is currently set up for USB data transfer. Now if we're going to use the server and connect wirelessly to Gatekeeper, then we need to make a change here. And we simply click on USB device, select cellular, press tick, and then after a short while you'll see we'll get 2 ticks in here, and the system will enable a connection to the server. Now this Combine is not currently set up at the moment, and you can do a quick test by pressing this button here, and you can see it runs through basically all the features that need to be on the Combine to make that connection. So we're going to set that up in a second and then carry on and show you what happens when we go in and out of the field. All that's set, so let's see now what happens when we go to the field. So when the ignition is turned on and the terminal boots up, the first thing it will do is dial into the server and check to see if there's any task data available. Here we can see there is. Simply press the tick and then it prompts you to download the task data. This takes just a few seconds normally. Once it's downloaded, just press the tick to accept the data is imported correctly. Now as we drive into the field, we'll see what happens. First, as we cross the field boundary, the automatic field recognition has worked and recognised that we're in middle field. Press the tick to accept. That loads up. And because we've sent a task wirelessly from Gatekeeper to the machine, the task is present here. If it hadn't been, it would be prompted to create a task by pressing the plus button. The combine then builds the data in the task, so it adds the combine to it, it's added the field to it. And we can see we've got that customer farm field structure, which will be useful when we're importing back into Gatekeeper. Now the task is not going to be carried out. As you can see, it's not quite ready. What we're going to do, we're going to reverse out of the field, and then you'll see what happens as we cross the field boundary again, but this time leaving the field. So we're just backing out now. Now we set the terminal to prompt us when we left the field as to what to do, and so now it's prompting us here to say what you want to do. So we're going to select book the task to finish the job. Takes us to the booking page. Here we've got the option of a normal tick or a tick with a notepad which would copy the task, so it would book it but leave a copy on the terminal. For us, we just press the single tick and the job is done and gone off the terminal. And that's it. All done.